Well, Rich here, and it's Tool Time Thursday. Now, not too busy this week, but I've got one or two interesting projects going on. So let me get the camera down, talk you through what we've got, and as ever in this video, I will be showing you wherever possible the before and after of the cars. But not with this one. We've got a little bit of work to do on this as yet, but not too much because it's getting very closer to its first run. And if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know what's lurking under the hood. Well, first we have the HPI Racing RS4 Sport 3 Creators Edition, and I'm going to talk you through what mods we're doing on that today. Then we're moving on to the Losi Super Rock Ray and a quick servo fix and a new body for this one by the end of the video. We have the Arrma Infraction, which is getting ever close to running on its twin AS 16S power plant. Well, with the RS4 Sport 3 Creators Edition from HPI Racing, what have we got to do today? Well, I'm removing the lock diff that I fitted in there the other day, removing these drift tyres, fitting the original diff back in, and we're fitting some foam tyres on this car and having a quick run around the yard to see how much that improves the grip and the handling. So let's get straight on with that. 4 screws to undo on the back to swap the diff over. And this car has simplicity itself to work on. Once you've undone those 4 screws, the differential, taking care with the drive shafts there, just pops straight out, and then I'm going to slide my unlock differential, the original one. Okay, that's the differential swapped over. You're talking 4 or 5 minutes at the absolute most on there. Now it's time to take the drift tyres off, foam's on. Well, foam tyres on, quick blast with the airline, and it's time to take it outside for a spin.
On 2S, a little bit damp out here today, but with the foams on, fingers crossed we get a little, yeah, the foam's definitely making a difference from the outset. Oh, mama. And this thing is still a little bit touchy on the wet, but the foam's definitely making a huge difference on there. It's far more predictable. I've got far more grip wanting to put that power down. I think on blacktop, on the foams, this thing is going to be frightening. Not as much tendency to spin out on here, despite it being a little bit damp. Feels a lot more predictable.
Well, straight onto the Super Rock Ray in just a second, but I just want to say this thing with foams on it absolutely transformed. I think on blacktop, dry blacktop, this thing is going to be an absolute speed demon. Handles very, very well indeed. Loving the steering, loving the braking, and accelerates like a rocket on just 2S, but it will take 3S. Anyway, let's move on to the Super Rock Ray. Now I show you the good and the bad of my RC life. At this point, I was thinking I had just stripped the threads on the servo arm and not on the servo, because when I tested the servo on the bench, it all seemed to be working absolutely fine. Anyway, let's carry on with the story. So, got this hot racing one to fit on, fit the servo back on, then it's on with the new hot dip body from Honolulu, which is absolutely mind-blowing. Well, servo's in, but I have some bad news. Despite the new servo horn being on there, still horrendous juddering when it turns to the right, and it does sound like it's something coming from the inside of the servo. Despite me having taken this servo off, tested it on the bench, and it seems to be fine, there is clearly a problem with the internal thing. But I show the good and bad of my RC life and don't hide any of the problems away. So either I'm going to take this apart, see if we can get a new set of gears for it, or if not, it's time for a new servo, and these are painfully expensive, I'm afraid to say. And the downside is, not only may I have to fork out for a new servo, you're not going to get to see the gorgeous new body that Honolulu hot dipped for me until next week, but you are going to get to see how well I'm getting on with the 16S Arrma Infraction. Just remember guys, if you like what you see today, don't forget to subscribe. So onto the 16S Arrma Infraction project. Still sitting a bit low at the front, that is because you will still notice the front bumper is off. I'm not putting that back on until the last second. Now somebody out there on the last video said that's not 16S, that's 8S. Okay, one 8S battery plus another 8S battery. 2 times 8 is, well, I'll leave you to work that one out on your own. So, batteries aside, what have we got going on in here? Well, I'm going to take the camera down and show you this in a little more detail. I've now got both motors in place on the twin motor mount on here. Both of the ESCs will sit on this plate side by side, and I will happily fit under that cab body, so that's side by side, although I am going to get a larger plate to fit them on a little bit more stably on there. Main effort is gone on the other side of the car and on the steering. Anyway, starting at the back of the car, what have we got new fitted this week? Well, fitted the GPM dog bones, both at the rear and at the front. They are 1mm thicker, toughened drive shafts in order to hopefully stop the wobble out on there. You can buy toughened ones. Somebody on Facebook was selling toughened ones, but they are like $92 for two. You can buy the GPM thicker ones, around about $16 for the two of them. And other parts, you will notice under here, the centre diff cover is now a Hot Racing metal one, and I've also got the Hot Racing little bearing carriers down on here, eliminating the plastic ones because I was worried about the level, any flags up and down in this shaft with this power going through it, that could turn into catastrophic wobble at any kind of speed. So I've fit those in there, and that's clamped down nice and tightly now, so that is not moving up and down too badly at all. You can see the twin motor mount from the side on there. You're thinking, how the hell did he fit the motors? Well, you need to unscrew each of the battery trays in turn in order to fix the motor on and set the gear mesh, then screw it back on and then do the same with the other side. So it's quite an easy job, although it does burn quite a lot of time on there. Moving on round, the servo is going to sit on a little bracket on top of there. It butts right up hard against the motor. Now, the original motor on here sat hard up against the front suspension post on this side. This is exactly the same motor. However, while they quote the spec has been 91mm, for some reason they're now making them about 93mm. The difference that makes is kind of huge. Now, the steering servo saver is the thing that's taken most of my time, because I've had to move the steering forwards and across by about 6mm, because the steering servo saver pushed backwards beyond this bulkhead, if you like, and meant I couldn't fit that motor in there. So the motor being a couple of mil longer didn't help due to the manufacturing tolerances on that thing, but I was going to have to move it forwards anyway. So having moved that forwards, I needed to do somewhat rework the plate on here in order to get it to hold the steering servo saver from the top. However, I've gone and machined a new, much thicker plate on there, which I'm just in the process of finishing up the tolerances on that, and when that drops down, that's going to hold that in place nice and tight on there. Speaking of that steering, I was going to put this 25 kilo servo in there. However, Power Hobby have delivered this 729 MBL digital brushless servo to me. It's a high voltage one, which means running on a 7.4 volts on the BSC. This is pulling nearly 40 kilos of pulling power. I'll put a link to that below the video. So I'm definitely fitting this one in my little bracket in there instead of my 25 kilo one. As I say, link to it below the video because it does look and sound pretty impressive spec. The only other thing I may do is increase the length of the steering servo horn and waste it in a little bit on this side in order to increase the steering travel when the servo pulls back. Now, I am in the process of putting a video together with all the different upgrades and what I've done as I've gone along. The one thing I'm not going to be covering is how to move that steering servo forwards on its own, as it involves a lot of effort and a lot of child unfriendly language. Although if there is enough interest, I may make up some of these plates if people want to do the same job. But anyway, let me know your thoughts on this. You're looking forward to seeing it run. Now, I did mention earlier the ESCs that sit on that plate. I've been playing around with them. You see them sat on the side here going into the receiver, and I'm happy to say now both ESCs are working as one. So they accelerate at the same time and speed, they brake at the same time and speed, they reverse at the same time and speed, which was a key factor in putting all of this together. Again, that was a relatively straightforward job, more time consuming in making sure it was absolutely right than having any problem issues with electronics, etc. So fingers crossed that will still be working right when I pop it in the car next week. So that concludes this week's Tool Time Thursday. My 16S Arrma Infraction is coming along quite nicely. I've not been rushing at this. I've been taking the time to make sure everything's right in terms of the tolerances, things like fitting the weighting and fitting that Hot Racing upgraded centre diff cover on there to make sure we didn't have too much wobble in the drive shafts, waiting until I've got the thicker GPM drive shafts so that they're not moving around and oscillating at speed. Now, I've not had that problem with the Arrma Infraction, but I know some people out there have, so I know it is a real issue on there. So I cannot wait to test these new 8S Power Hobby batteries on the thing, and this servo looks to be absolutely cracking. So I'm going to turn the voltage up on a BEC because I think with 39 kilos of pulling power, that is going to definitely help keep the front end of this steering exactly where it is intended to be pointing. As for the super rock rate, well, these things happen. If it was easy, everybody would be doing this. So you learn to put up with the things like that. Yeah, it's very frustrating when it happens. I'm really not looking forward to it if I have to buy a new servo for the thing. I've got some larger servos in, but they're a little bit too big, too long to fit in out, which is just equally frustrating. But anyway, these things are sent to testers. Anyhow, I hope this week's Tool Time Thursday video has been of some interest. And if you don't want to miss the first run of the 16S Arrma Infraction, then don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Well, thumbs up if you like this video, guys. Post any comments you might have in the comment section below the video and hit the circle below to subscribe. And if you do hit the circle, don't forget to hit the bell.